In February 1959, 9 experienced Soviet hikers died on a mountain called Khalat Syakhl, and Soviet investigators still cannot account for one detail. One of them had a fractured skull with no external wound, no bruising, and no blood anywhere on the snow near the body. That's not survivable. That's not explainable. And it wasn't the strangest thing they found. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, 23 years old, a mechanical engineering student at the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Sverdlovsk. He was experienced. 8 of the 9 held advanced hiking certifications. These were not amateurs stumbling into the backcountry. They left on January 23, 1959, heading toward Otorten Peak in the northern Ural Mountains, a route they had planned in precise detail. They were expected back by February 12th. When that date passed without contact, a search and rescue party went in. They found the tent on February 26th, pitched on the open slope of Khalat Syakhl. It had been cut open from the inside. Skis, food, boots, warm outer clothing, all of it still inside. The hikers had walked out into -30-degree air in socks or bare feet. Follow the footprints from the tent and they lead downhill toward the tree line about a kilometer away. The tracks are calm, deliberate, not running. Whatever made 9 people abandon their shelter in the middle of the night without shoes, without gear, it did not make them panic. Not immediately. The first 2 bodies were found at the edge of the forest near a cedar tree. Krivonishenko and Doroshenko, both in their underwear. A fire had been made. Branches on the cedar had been broken from below, up to 5 meters high. Someone climbed that tree in the dark without shoes in -30-degree cold. The next 3 bodies, including Dyatlov himself, were found scattered between the tree line and the tent, as if they had turned back toward shelter and never made it. The initial conclusion was hypothermia and panic. A storm disoriented them. They fled the tent believing it was the threat. The undressing is explained by a documented phenomenon called paradoxical undressing, where dying capillaries suddenly dilate, producing a brief and fatal sensation of warmth. The scatter pattern fits. The lack of visible injuries on those first 5 bodies fits. The case almost closes right there. Almost. 4 of the 9 weren't recovered until May, buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine 60 meters from the cedar tree. When they came up, 3 had injuries that hypothermia does not produce. Dubinina had a fractured sternum and bilateral rib fractures on both sides. The force required is comparable to a high-speed vehicle impact. Zolotaryov had matching rib fractures on his right side. Thibault-Sprignoles had a massive skull fracture. None of the 3 had soft tissue damage. No bruising, no torn skin. The pathologist described the injury profile as consistent with a high-pressure wave, a concussive force transmitted through the air itself, not applied by any hand. You would expect shattered bones to come with shattered skin. They don't. And then there's what Dubinina was missing. Her tongue, her eyes. This is the detail investigators cannot close. The official explanation is decomposition in meltwater during the spring thaw. That is theoretically possible, except Dubinina was recovered in early May under 4 meters of compacted mountain snow, in temperatures that hold well below freezing through April at that elevation. Decomposition at those conditions does not selectively dissolve soft tissue from one victim, while leaving the surrounding tissue on the other 3 ravine bodies largely intact. Then the clothing. Pieces had been deliberately cut from the bodies of Zolotaryov and Krivonishenko and placed on other members of the group. Cut, not torn, post-mortem, deliberate. Then the radiation. 2 garments from the ravine tested positive for elevated beta radiation, not background levels, not explainable by the local geology of the Urals. When the case's lead investigator, Lev Ivanov, spoke publicly decades later, he stated he had been instructed to suppress findings relating to the anomalous radiation readings. He was told to close it. Every proposed explanation eventually fails. Avalanche. The slope angle at the tent is too shallow for a slab release. There is no debris field, and avalanche compression doesn't fracture ribs without bruising the skin. Infrasound from wind over the ridge. plausible as a panic trigger, but not a mechanism for cracked rib caves. A Soviet military test in the corridor. Rocket components were being tested nearby. This is documented, but no wreckage was recovered, and the radiation profile matches no known propellant signature of that era. The local Mansi people were investigated and cleared. The only footprints at the tent were the 9. Russia reopened the investigation in 2019. It was closed again in 2020. Official finding: avalanche, fractured bones, intact skin, radioactive fabric, a suppressed report, a missing tongue, 9 people who left their tent without running. What were they told not to find?